Let's start today by putting our feet flat on the floor. One hand on your heart, one hand on your belly, and let's just take some big deep breaths in through your nose, out through your mouth. And if you can just close your eyes for a moment, get nice and centered. The straighter your posture, so if you're sitting, feet flat on the floor, pelvic bowl nice and open, spine nice and straight, neck aligned. Take some big deep breaths from there. If you're lying down, just lay down in a nice flowing posture. If you think about water moving through your body as you're laying down, could it go in one straight stream? And let's just continue to breathe here, in through your nose, out through your mouth. Before I start teaching today, I just want to give you a reminder of the power of your breath and the power of the present moment, to return to yourself and that centeredness and that calmness, that ability to regulate your nervous system so that you can be open and receptive to all of the messages, all of the experiences, and really all of the truth of the present moment. I find that sometimes when we get overstimulated, when we become ungrounded, we start to miss out on the truth of life because our mind is busy creating stories for us. And when we can come back to that center, to that inner peace, to that sanctity within, we find our truth, we find our beauty, we find our compassion, find our integrity, we find our soul. And that leads me into what I want to talk about today. A couple weeks ago, I started this inner child series based around all of the different ways that our inner child wounding can show up. This week, as we explore that further, I want you to really hone in on the idea of perception. As we are forming our identity, as we're growing up, as we're developing, the only thing that we can base who we are on is our perceived perception of the other. And what I mean by that is, for example, if you notice that every time you cry, your mom gets a worried, crinkled face, and she starts to talk in a high-pitched tone that you don't like, you are creating a story based on what your mom's perception of your crying is. That's not the truth. The truth is that you're crying for whatever reason you're crying. But you create a story based on that. And so you start your first filter. Well, I don't want to make my mom anxious, or I do, whatever kind of child you were. And so I'm going to filter myself, or I'm going to make myself louder, depending on what you decided. And it wasn't any longer about why you were crying in the moment. It was the action you would take following that based on that original perception. We do this all the time in every way. One of my favorite philosophers, Alan Watts, often talks about things like, could you hear a single hand clap? Can you hear the sound of a tree falling in the forest if there's no one standing there? The whole premise of all these analogies is that without other, we don't know who we are at the ego level. The ego literally forms itself, its personality, the way it shows up based on other, the way others will perceive us, and then therefore the way we will perceive ourselves based off of their action or inaction. We've been trained this way, programmed this way. There's all of these different systems, music, social media, television programs that are constantly programming our mind about how to feel, how to perceive, how to create different experiences based on whatever's being said on the external. And so everything we form about ourselves is no longer about what's inside here, what's going on here. It's about what's going on inside here and how it will affect out there, or how out there will affect in here. We project things like, if I have this amount of money, then I'll feel happy inside. No, if you felt happy inside, you would feel happy inside. Things like, well, because I feel sad inside, I'll never have this outside. No, that is your perception. You are the one that creates the labels. You are the one that creates the expectations. You are the one that creates the vision of your reality based on whatever judgments, preconceived notions or ideals and belief systems that you have created, but still, and this is where it gets confusing, still not based on your truth. All of these ideas and perceptions of the world are based on what you started to perceive the world as a young child. It's the reason why in some countries, women giving birth, it's a very natural thing. Of course, I'm sure there comes with it a little bit of pain, a little bit of circumstance, but in some countries, women will literally, right in the middle of preparing a meal, excuse themselves to another room, birth their baby, clean them up themselves. And an hour later, they're back doing what they were doing. And it's this beautiful thing. And then here in the West, we have a 2-day stay in the hospital with doctors and procedures, and it's really painful, and all this medicine is required. And I'm not saying it's not. Of course it is, because that's what's put in our brain from the time we are small in the West. In most families, right? Childhood or childbirth is painful. Childbirth requires medicine. Childbirth requires doctors. And so it's all of these different perceptions that create our view of the world. And I think a lot of times we get to adulthood, and because we're living our life based on all these stories we've created around all of these perceptions by other people as we were kids, we have this like discontent within, this longing within, this anxiety within, this unbalance within, whatever it might be for you, however it might show up. Cycles of self-sabotage, addiction, abuse, all of these things come up in our lives because that is how we've been created to perceive the world based on a young age. Reparenting yourself and healing your inner child is about unraveling every belief, every perception, every preconceived idea, the way that you define things in your life, the way that you define religion, the way that you define God, the way that you define relationships, love, all of it has to be looked at and questioned if it doesn't feel in alignment, right? There's going to be some things that you absolutely still resonate with, that you unequivocally know that that is you. For example, for me, as I was unraveling, one thing was always true. I love to write and I love to teach. From the time I can remember being a child up until now, it's never faded. I'm not going to go through and dig up and question those things because it feels really good to me, right? And then there's other things that the way that marriage works or the way relationships work or my relationship with God that never really felt good. I didn't make my parents or family right or wrong for it. I just knew it didn't feel good. And so I started internal reflection and questioning to create my own ideals, right? And this is the part of healing where we have to start talking about boundaries and relationships and communications, because as you change your perception of the world, unfortunately, other people's perception of you either has to change or they have to kind of get rid of you out of their life so they can keep you stuck in that same perception. For example, if you have a friend that you grew up with forever, right? And you've always kind of needed that friend or leaned on that friend, and that's kind of their role. And you all of a sudden start blossoming into this beautiful, strong, organic being. And this friend's role of caregiver and rescuer has to change in order for you to be this person. They're either going to have to change and accept however you are, or they're going to have to cut you off and find somebody else to replace that perception of them as the caregiver and rescuer. This can happen in any situation, in any perceived reality with another. And this is why there are so many growing pains on the healing journey. The only thing you're doing, when I talk about healing, when I talk about shedding the layers, when I talk about getting to that place of freedom, getting to your truth, the only thing I'm talking about is you remembering who you've been from the beginning, before the world threw its expectations on you, before anyone was able to say who and what you are based on their truth, based on their reality. This whole journey is getting back to your innate goodness, whatever goodness means for you from that soul level. It's about breathing in like we did at the beginning, taking big, deep breaths inside of ourselves and feeling that light and that warmth radiating outwards and saying, I'm going to choose whatever aligns me most to that feeling. I'm going to let that feeling propel me forward and shape my life, rather than I'm going to try to catch this feeling by bringing in all of these other things that I think will fill it. We expand outward and attract what we want. We don't have to pull in to fill. We are whole and complete exactly as we are in our center. And it's those ripples of other people's woundings, of other people's truth, of other people's perceptions that make it so scrunched down and suffocating in here. We don't have to blame others. We don't have to make them wrong, because what might align with your partners, your friends, your parents' soul truth is for them, and it doesn't have to affect you. It's about you taking away the power of their perception of you and creating your own reality that affects how you feel internally. They can still be over here having their own beliefs, having their own life that doesn't look anything like yours, and they don't have to be wrong or bad for it, and you don't have to be wrong or bad for yours. You both get to live in harmony simultaneously, making your own choices, standing in your own soul alignment or not. And I think that's why a lot of people get freaked out on the healing journey, is because they feel this shedding of relationships, this growing, all of this stretching and expanding, and some people still fit and some people don't. And there's all of this loss, and there's grieving parts of who you were, and there's grieving relationships. And really, there's so much grief. But again, we can move through this process if we come back into our bodies and align with our soul truth and realize that even the grief is a human experience and sensation that we can be wildly excited about. That we can view the world through our own perception of excitement and wonder, adventure, longing, and love. Whatever feels good to you gets to feel good to you without the shame and without the judgment and without the doubt. And that can be true for another. But we create that misalignment and we create that false reality when we are only being molded by the perception of others or our perception of theirs. And over and over and over again, coming back to your truth in the present moment. Not making decisions based on what you thought yesterday or what you think you'll think tomorrow, but making decisions based on how you feel right now in this moment. To make it really simple, if you want to go order a taco, it's not about ordering a taco because every Wednesday you and your dad went to the store and ordered a taco. That's not a real truth. It's not ordering a taco because yesterday you loved tacos. It's not ordering a taco because you heard on TV that a taco a day keeps the doctor away. It's ordering a taco in this moment because it's what your body says it wants. Because your soul said, hey, walk down to the taco truck and eat a taco. Right? But when we get honed in on this routine, this habit of just moving through life, making decisions based on the past or based on tomorrow. We're not living from our expanded soul truth, right? And a taco is a really silly example, but what if you change that with, is this really what I believe love is? Or is this what my dad believed love is? Is this what my church believed love is? Is this what I was told love is by a friend? Is this because this is every relationship in my life and I think I felt love in them, but I'm not really sure. And so I'm going to continue choosing this. What if it's coming back to the moment and tuning inward and asking, what does healthy love feel like for me? And noting what that looks like and what that feels like, and expanding upon that vision to see how you can become even more love on the inside. And then we start attracting it on the outside. And more than anything, it's letting go of the perceptions that anything you feel or do is wrong or bad or unworthy. I think a lot of people, start to heal themselves and they become really connected with their source or their own internal energy. And they think that they should be feeling good all of the time. They think they should be smiling all the time. But that also goes back to a perception about like, what is good? What does it mean to feel fully alive? Does it mean I'm always feeling joyous? Because to me, life is about the sensation of it. And I believe the sensations can get more and more pleasureful if we allow our perception of pleasure and pain to dissolve and we simply allow ourselves to experience life in the moment, not based on what we believed pain or pleasure was yesterday or what we think it will look like tomorrow. But understanding that whatever's happening to us in each moment can be a really beautiful life experience to expand our outlook, to open our heart, to create new tracks of learning and ways of being, even when it is painful. We can allow ourselves to be fully engaged in each moment and not trying to run away from or run towards something else. We use our minds to create all of these perceptions, and every action we take is either based on a perception of the past or based on a perception of what that thing will bring to us. And all of these things require this weight and this expectation. And you have to start asking yourself, who am I without this achievement, without this expectation? If I stop doing and I'm simply I, what does that look like? And can that be enough? This is that deep inner child work. I believe as you heal your inner child, you stand in your highest self. Our highest self can navigate life knowing and seeing what it is without putting the deep weight onto all of it and simply allowing it to be a process by which we evolve and new creations blossom. And it can all be beautiful and it can all be good and it can all feel whole. And so whatever you're seeing, whatever you're experiencing right now, if it feels comfortable, if it feels uncomfortable, if it feels painful or good, ask yourself to come back, to notice what's in alignment with the deepest part of you. Why do you do what you do? Where does that desire come from? What is the perceived outcome of that? In your relationships, can you be fully you, or are you thinking about the reaction of the other? This is where it starts. We don't have to go mad. We don't have to become obsessed. We just get to start noticing, moving forward and noticing. This is where our identity is created. I don't exist without you. You don't exist without me. But if we can each make that intention to perceive the world without all the filters and expectations and start to see reality clearly based on what's inside, I think we can all have a really beautiful adventure together. So take a deep breath as we come to an end today. Just allow yourself to observe and see what comes up next. Like I said, every week we'll go deeper and deeper into these teachings. We don't need to hold judgment or doubt against ourselves or others. We don't have to act on anything we felt today. We just get to be with the experience. And let's put our feet back on the floor. Hand on your heart, hand on your belly. Big deep breath in through your nose, out through your mouth. In through your nose, out through your mouth. And just be here now. Thank you for your time and energy today. I so appreciate you being here. As always, breathe deep and plan on miracles. Bye, guys.